Amazing. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're tuning in from. I am so delighted to welcome you to it should be the last EQ Lunch and Learn series this year. I am such a fan of EQ Lunch and Learn series because we get to learn a lot. So I hope you've carried your lunch with you and you're ready to just, grab the nuggets of wisdom that our panelists have come in to share with us today. So I will go right in and say, please, on the chat box, let us know where you're tuning in from on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook. Just let us know where you're tuning in from so then we can keep in touch and communicate as we go along. So I will bring up my panelists in a short while. But before that, I would want to just introduce what we're going to be speaking about today. We are coming to the close of the year. It's an exciting time for a lot of people. And it is very important to take a moment to reflect on the journey we've been on, the progress we've made, and most importantly, the lessons we have learned along the way. Reflections Looking Back to Step Forward is a thought provoking discussion that encourages participants to explore their experiences, accomplishments, challenges, personal growth throughout the year. This reflective conversation offers a valuable opportunity to both celebrate successes and identify areas of improvement as we move forward into another year. So I'm hoping we're already excited thinking about the wins we've had and looking at what goals we can, write down for the next year. Today, we're going to explore three things: reflecting on work-life balance in the past year and its significance, revisit personal and professional milestones achieved over this past year, and talk about how we can leverage EQ to help us create a vision of personal growth and finding our purpose for the new year. That's exciting. I'm super excited to have this conversation because we are right on time to get ready and gear up for 2024. And I have four amazing guests with me here today to have a conversation around this. Um, it's a power panel, if you ask me. So I will start introducing them. First, I will put up Mucha Mlingo. Just to introduce Mucha as she comes on screen, Mucha is a self professed emotional intelligent fanatic. Mucha is on a mission to transform Africa, changing hearts and minds one leader at a time. Mucha believes that self awareness is a leadership superpower and supports leaders to develop a deeper understanding on self in order to enhance leadership effectiveness. Emotions are data, she always says, and it's signals that give leaders information about themselves and others. Mucha believes that without EQ, leaders are probably not picking up these important signals and not seeing how their own emotions color thinking for good and for ill. So to learn more about Mucha, the link to her LinkedIn profile will be on the chat. So please connect with her on LinkedIn. Hi, Mucha. Welcome to the conversation.
It's amazing to be on this side of the
I know.
of the conversation. Normally, I'm on the other
Always
side, so
do.
I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to this discussion. Being on this
awesome.
side of the conversation.
You'll tell me how that feels at the end of the session. I know this is a bit odd for
Yeah.
you, but it's lovely to have you on that side and share nuggets of wisdom with us today. The next
Thank
person I
you.
will bring on my screen is Amos Ngahu. Amos is a financial coach. He's the founder of Money Clinic Limited, a firm that offers integrated training solutions to corporates in the form of financial literacy and mentorship. He's also the founder of a program called Money Gossip. If you haven't interacted with it, I don't know what stone you're hiding under. Designed for young professionals and entrepreneurs, aimed at helping them to make the best out of their money in their active years. It is his passion and desire to see others achieve financial freedom that has fueled his drive to coach on money matters, a journey which he began 17 years ago. To learn more about Amos, his LinkedIn profile will be on the chat. Please connect with him. Amos, how are you? You have a colorful background. I like it. Karibu
Thank you
sana.
very much. How are you guys doing?
We're good. We're good.
We are good.
Santa.
Good.
Welcome, welcome. So I'll go on to my next panelist, the lovely lady Lynette Etemesi. Lynette is a lawyer by profession, founder of Mental Wellness Project Africa, an initiative that seeks to advocate for trauma-informed practices at our institutions and also advocate for favorable policies and legislation around mental health in Kenya. She has experience in mental health advocacy and was part of the team that drafted the Mental Health Act that was assented in 2022. Additionally, she's an avid contributor to the Ubuntu series at Africa Legal that promotes and advocates for mental well-being within her profession. To learn more about Lynette, her link will be on the chat as well. So go ahead and start connecting with her. Lynette, welcome to the chat. How are you?
Thank you so much, Tessie. I'm so excited and I'm feeling great. Great to see you, Mucha and Amos as well.
Welcome, Tess. Thank you. And I have my last but not least, Timon Oviawe. Please, Timon, you can, correct me if I butchered your name. Timon has over 23 years of experience working with young minds and is passionate about developing natural talents, abilities, and feeling of self-worth. He has given talks at seminars on emotional intelligence, leadership, personal development, and corporate and individual behavioral transformation, with an emphasis on the need for a program shift and behavioral change. He has also been working with young people from several academic institutions in the southwest of Nigeria and on interactive leadership programs for more than 10 years. Timon, welcome to the chat. And you can connect with Timon on the comment section as well. His link will be there. Timon, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very, very, very fine. Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this session. I'm sure it's going to be a fun.
Thank you as well.
And
As
to
I
everyone,
mentioned,
panelists,
guys,
I'm waiting to learn from you all.
great. Thank you. As I mentioned, we have a power panel here, so I'm really worried for time. I don't know how much it does this. I can get carried away. So guys, feel free to bring me back if I do get carried away. This is a conversation that is timely, and I really want us to have an interactive conversation on the chat. Now, again, if you're sharing with me where you're tuning in from, keep engaging with us, keep engaging with our panelists, keep the questions coming as we go along. And my first question will be to all the panelists in the room. In your various industries, what were the most significant developments or challenges you've encountered this year? And how do you see this shaping the landscape in those same industries next year? I would want to start with Mucha.
Thank you very much, Tessie, for your question. And again, it's great to have everyone here, and it's really exciting to be on this side of the challenge, this side of the panel. Usually, I'm the one hosting. So I think that really there's been quite a lot of changes and challenges, and speaking as someone in the people development space, I think we continue to adopt technology as a tool. And I think this is something that will really influence how we show up as an organization, in the way that we'll interact with our clients next year. And so being able to reflect on what has been going on is really useful in planning for what is coming up in the next year. And that's why I think, to your earlier point, this idea of reflecting is critical. So yeah, I think one thing is definitely the rise of technology, the continuing rise of technology post-COVID. But interestingly enough, for us in the learning and development space, has also been an increasing cry for human connection. So yes, we know that it is possible to meet online, and yes, it is possible to have those connections online, but people want to see each other and meet each other. So that has definitely been, something that we've seen, and I think that's something that we will see going forward. And so as an organization is trying to figure out how do we leverage technology but still make sure that we meet the needs that that people have. I think that's definitely a trend we're seeing, and so as we look at how to move forward next year, we'll incorporate that. And then I think maybe the last thing is, I always have to talk about some elements of emotional intelligence. We've seen an increasing need for emotional intelligence. So for us, I think just really shouting louder about what we do is critical as we go into the new year. And so I think being able to reflect on what has gone on in the in our space helps us as we plan for the future. And perhaps, Tessie, before we dive into the actual content, if you don't mind, I'd be interested to hear from the other panelists around why reflecting is important, right? So why is it important to take time to reflect on the year that has been as you plan for the next year? Why not just dive into planning for the next year? So if you can allow me to take us off course a little and ask the other panelists the why question, I think it would be important to set the scene.
That's fine, Mucha. That's a great place to start, actually. So I'll move it straight to Amos and hear from you, Amos. Why should we reflect?
Well, I think financially, because I offer financial literacy, and basically, in a very simple statement, is helping people relate better with their finances, improving that relationship you have with your money, whether it's staying or it's flying away, it's finding too much month at the end of the money. But the challenge has been we have seen a lot of change, especially the way our economy is. We've seen high prices in terms of fuel, which has actually been the backbone of most businesses, especially those in production. We've seen now businesses crying. There's the high cost of energy. And then currently we have floods, and everybody's crying that this is happening. At least yesterday there was a judgment of people thinking there's a relief on the housing fund, because if you want to touch people's income, they will all come up in arms against you. So it has been a challenge, especially when it comes to personal finances. And we have, on the other hand, we have also seen a rise in, let's say, government securities. For the first time, I'm seeing a treasury bill being above 15% in Kenya. So you will still see that people are taking initiatives to, to look out, like some of the programs I offer. People are reaching out, people are inquisitive on how can I add 1 or 2 shillings? How can I supplement my income? And I believe, going back to COVID, I believe COVID opened our eyes. And I don't think, especially speaking for Kenyans, I don't think as much as we went through COVID, I don't think people are now scared about this thing. They know we will get over it, because I think COVID taught us to be resilient. So the importance again of reflecting is also knowing that these things are seasonal, and whatever you're going through financially, at some point you'll come to realize that you'll go past it. So it is important for us to reflect and see, probably all I needed this year is to keep going. Probably I may not have achieved much, but I never stopped. I kept going. So that is a very big step for people to understand that they've also made steps. They've not stopped, because you see, whatever is not growing is dying. So for me, I feel like that is very important for people to reflect and see, I didn't stop. I didn't achieve most of the things I set out to do. But right now, I look back, and I never stopped. And I feel like that is very important for anybody doing a review before they plan for the coming year.
Great. Thank you, Amos. A lot of people say progress over perfection. So as long as you kept moving, that is what counts. Thank you for that. I will go to Lynn Etemesi. Please share with us why you think it's important to reflect.
Well, definitely. Reflection just helps you identify and appreciate positive experiences, and also ways on how you can improve. And just going into this particular area that I'm conversant with, which is mental health. Other than COVID, I think 2023 has really tried us as a country in terms of, financially, the political sphere. There's a lot that's been happening every day. We are on a marathon on some kind. There's something happening. There's something on the news, and what we need to understand is all these things usually take a toll on our mental health in one way or another. So of course you open the news and you open your TV and you put on your TV, sorry, and the first thing you see is El Nino here. The cost of living has gone up. They've increased the oil prices. You're thinking, okay, if they've increased the prices, that means fuel has gone up. How am I supposed to get to work? Public transport come in and say, okay, we've also increased fare. So there's so much that is happening that what we don't stop and take a moment to consider is that it's actually affecting our mental health in one way or another. And it comes in different ways. For instance, all of a sudden you're feeling very overwhelmed, exhausted. You're just emotionally where you are stressed. So the question is, do we stop back and think of how do we take care of our mental health? Because we are constantly on marathon. We are constantly working. Our minds are constantly racing. The same way Amos kept saying, we are constantly thinking, what do we do? What's our next side hustle? How do we figure this out? These guys are issuing a profit warning. Does that mean that I'm going to be fired? All these things are putting our mind, our mind is racing. So we also need to stop and think about how are we taking care of our mental health collectively, in terms of how are our organizations taking care of their employees? How are we as friends taking care of each other? How are we looking out for ourselves? Do we have any self-care routines to be able to beat the usual stresses of life? So I feel like it's important for us to reflect on a personal level, on an organizational level, and also on a national level. What are some of the things that we're doing to actually take care of our mental health and put it first? Because if our mental health is not in check, then that means our productivity levels are not in check. We won't do what we need to do. We won't perform at an optimum. So I believe those are some of the areas that if we reflect and look into, then we can find ways or devise ways as we are getting into 2024 to make it better. And also on the areas that we've improved on, work on actually improving them a bit more. Thank you, Tessie.
Great. Thank you for that, Lynette. What I hear is it starts with you. I mean, you have the opportunity, you have it sits with you to make those decisions, to decide, okay, I can, think through what my year has been and I can make the best out of the year that's coming. So I'll move it to Timon. Timon, please share with us, why do you think it's important to reflect?
Thank you for that question. And Amos and Lane have really said something very important with respect to that. But let me take it from this dimension. Why is it important for us to reflect? If we see that we are a sum total of the events that have happened to us in the past, and where we are right now is a strong determinant of where we are going to be. So if we think wrongly or probably don't maximize the data of what the past have, the influence of the past on us, we will probably not make a good decision moving forward. So when you ask the question, why is it necessary for us to reflect? We all are moving forward. They must say we must have to think of how tomorrow is going to be like. Lynn said, okay, find our mental health, how we're going to look like, but we must have a proper analysis of what has happened to me in the past, what has influenced my thinking in the past. Will such thinking be useful for me now to help me propagate how my tomorrow is going to be? If you don't take a proper reflection or think adequately of what had happened to me in the past, maybe it's the government policy. How did you react to the government policy? How has it affected your mental health? How has it affected your finances? How has it affecting your emotional outbursts and the like? If you are not able to put it together, much as I believe what Mucha normally say, and I'm saying it again, emotions are data. So if you are not able to maximize the data, you won't be able to move forward. No matter even if you have the best information right now, it will be nice to take a fine. Where am I coming from? In as much as the past should not cage you, but you should glean from it and ask yourself, okay, what have I done differently? What am I going to do in a different way so that I will get a desired future? That means that you must have painted a picture of your desired future, and you are gleaning into your past by way of reflection and say, okay, fine, I've done X, Y, Z. It didn't profit me much. Okay, the government policy have affected me. This is the thing that made it hit hard on me. What am I going to do differently? Um, if Amos is saying, okay, this is what the financial landscape is going to be the next 1 year. Okay, am I strong enough right now, based on what have happened to me in the past, to be able to engage what tomorrow is going to be like? That reflection is what's going to give you a proper an eye opener as to how you will engage tomorrow. So that question is, if you don't do a proper reflection of the past, you will just see the find yourself in that clog of tomorrow. The future is still going to be what it was last time. So I think it is important for us to look at it, being able to analyze the data of the past, then choose the right decisions now so that you can maximize what tomorrow will be like. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Timon. You kept referencing Mucha, and a lot of the things she says just came back at me. And Mucha says it's when you ignore your emotions, which are data, it's like attempting to drive blindfolded, and you know what will happen, right? So Mucha, I'd want us to talk about growing or building this EQ muscle. How do we measure our growth in that effect? Where we started, how do I say I started at this point, and now I feel like I'm better and I'm leveraging my EQ skill.
Thanks, Tessie. It's a great, question to ask, because we must continue to assess how we are doing. I think that, the best way to measure your growth as far as emotional intelligence is concerned is to spend some time, as I always say, in self-reflection, and ask yourself how you have been working or how you've been responding to the things that are happening around you. What are some of the patterns that you have identified, and how have you managed to deal with those patterns? And so it's really just recognizing that emotional intelligence is not a pass or fail, right? So it's not a case of saying, oh, I've passed EQ, but it's a case of constant growth. So where was I this time at the beginning of the year as far as my EQ is concerned, and where am I today? And the key indicators to look out for are three. Number one, how well do I recognize patterns that exist, especially patterns that do not serve me well? All too often, we find ourselves caught in a loop of patterns of behavior that don't serve us well. And so, our ability to notice those patterns so that we can do something about them is really critical. So, that's the first question I always ask myself. Have I become better at identifying those patterns? And those patterns can vary. Those patterns can be patterns that exist at work. A certain email comes with a certain tone, and I immediately respond and fire back an email with a very strong tone, because the email that was sent to me really just pushed a certain button. Am I noticing those things? Am I getting better at noticing them? That's number one. Number two, how has my emotional literacy developed? So do I have a bigger emotional vocabulary? When I feel what I feel, am I able to actually identify what it is and identify it accurately? So I think that for me is a second measure of growth. When we're able to truly tune into the data that is our emotions and speak to what that data actually is, I think that's really important. Number two. And then I think another thing that we can look at to see how well we have grown is, how do I then respond to the data? Am I aware of what my triggers are, and how am I responding to that data? So self-awareness in and of itself is not enough. The idea is I become self-aware so I can use that data. Another thing I always say is, yes, emotions are data, but emotions are not directives. Just because I feel a certain way doesn't mean I must act that way. So another thing that we can look at to determine how much we've grown is how well we are using the data that we've developed. So I've become more emotionally literate. I know what I'm feeling. I can distinguish between anger and disappointment. But now that I know, what am I doing about it? Am I actually using that data? And so when we take that time to really self-reflect and think through how we are doing vis-a-vis when we started at the beginning of the year, that can help us to see how we have progressed as far as our emotional intelligence is concerned.
Great. Thank you for that, Mucha. I'll jump to Lynette, and I'll speak more around the mental health space. Now, looking back or reflecting on this journey of mental health awareness, tell us more about the advancements that have been made in this space. And if those advancements, if they're there, I know you've been actively involved in this space, have they been useful in, impacting communities around us?
Great. Thank you so much for that question, Tessie. And yes, just to respond to that, yes, in the affirmative, yes, there have been some advancements. And I think one of the most important advancements that I think would really, really be pertinent to organizations moving to 2024 is that the Ministry of Health actually launched national guidelines around mental health in the workplace. And I think this is very important because now it kind of gives some sort of guideline on how people can navigate issues around mental wellness within the workspace, because this particular report was very multi-sectoral in its approach, because it involved a lot of sectors who are working there, from education to health, to people in, there's a lot of participation from the Private Sector Alliance, all these organizations that deem themselves to be employers of people were involved in this. And this kind of makes it very interesting, because usually a lot of, when it comes to policy and legislative work, Kenya, we're very good at borrowing. So we tend to really borrow and Kenyanize a lot of things, even from our actual, statutes and all that. We borrow. Then when someone asks you what's the justification of borrowing this particular thing, people have no justification. I think maybe the key part is, if we look at how our government has been talking a lot about Singapore and wanting to borrow a lot of, some gems from Singapore on how to run the economy. Yes, Singapore is a very, upbeat, and it's functional, but it forgets there are also some things that you borrow that are yet, to come. We can't implement them at the moment, maybe because we don't have the structure or we are not there yet. So this particular guidelines actually were made by employers themselves. And what are some of the situations that they've been seeing in terms of mental health? I think that's very important. If you have a moment, the Ministry of Health website has that. We can all have a look at it. Another thing that I've been seeing in terms of advancements in mental health is that we're seeing that a lot of insurance companies are actually increasing their covers to actually cover mental health. Previously, the amounts were very meager, they were very minimal, but you're seeing that a lot of employers are actually embracing the whole aspect of mental health. And when I say mental health, I'm not just talking about, bipolar disorder or some of these diagnosed disorders, but when it comes to issues around, you come from the workplace, people don't know what's going on at home. Maybe someone is going through domestic violence, there's some sort of trauma, and you bring it to the office and it actually affects your productivity. So, of course, offices have started considering that sometimes mental health issues and issues revolving around trauma don't just stem from the office, they also stem from, home. So it's important for people to actually cover that, because if those issues are not taken care of, then it affects the employees' productivity. So we are seeing insurance companies actually increasing the covers. We are also seeing a lot of employee assistance programs. Most organizations which didn't have that. So employee assistance program simply means that um, the employees have a designated counselor, and this particular counselor or mental health professional is able to extend all the way to, their family members or a number of family members, to actually assist them to deal with their day-to-day mental health issues. Those are some of the advancements we've seen. And I think also the other thing that I'm seeing is, you're seeing organizations coming up with policies. And one of the most impressive things that I saw is that EABL actually introduced something called loss leave, where women who actually go through miscarriages or pregnancy loss actually have 6 months of paid leave to allow them to grieve. And this is very important because people really underestimate the whole aspect of grief. How do we deal with grief in the workplace? Because sometimes it's a very linear process. One day you're okay, the next day you're not okay. So how do we deal with this? And of course, you won't just come up and fire someone because of because of their lack of productivity, because it's of grief. You realize that it's an unprecedented situation and people need help and they need to cope. So you're starting to see that workplaces are putting in a lot of policies that actually look into the welfare and the mental health of their employees, which is also very important. Another thing that we can say is that there's been a lot of in advancements. It's not happened yet, but we're hoping it will happen in the next financial year, is that there's been a lot of advocacy and lobbying around institutions, or rather mental health institutions, to offer care, and there should be a higher budgetary allocation, especially those within the community level, because you realize that a lot of people need community health services and they cannot afford all these other hospitals. So more funds should be channeled towards ensuring that they get the service that they need in terms of mental health. So far so good. It's been a pretty good year as compared to, based on, in terms of advancements rather. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Lynette. I think I hear hope in terms of we are making changes, we are adopting new things, we are listening to people, we are helping people, and that's the important thing to do. That's a way to go. But I want to now just move to Amos and speak about the elephant in the room, money. When we're writing down our goals, we will reflect and write on all the things that we need, including my dream subscription, which will cost money, but we'll get to the financial goals at the last point. So, Amos, normally, I know this could be a class, honestly, but how can people reflect on what their money journey or financial journey has been and what they can do to make it better in the next year? You're speaking on mute, sorry.
Sorry.
There you go.
So I was watching someone, checking their goals for this year, and they had written start my own business. So what they did is delete start and change to mind. So mind my own business. And it's quite interesting because financial literacy is very dear to me, and it cuts across 4 areas. Of course, there's the skills part, there's the knowledge part, which most of us have. But where we draw the line is the 2 other parts, where attitudes and behavior. So you will find that right now, nobody's thinking about January. Everybody's just looking at the plans that we have for now. They are forgetting that earlier in the year, January was 90 days as usual. So one of the things that I try to help people understand, and this is very dear to me, and the behavior side of money and the attitude side of money should be, can I find contentment? I believe contentment should be like up there with all the financial goals that you have. And this cuts across both ends. If you're really struggling financially, if you've done your best today, can you find contentment? Can you scale down without having to think what other people who really don't care about you are thinking? And all this other end, whereby if I am making a lot of money, can I still find contentment and take time to think? Because most of us are working style when you're broke, and when we have money, those are 2 different people. And just like it's a message shared, Kenyans, we love borrowing. I mean, it's only the other year we borrowed 169 billion. 169 billion. Please get this. 169 billion that went through Fuliza to betting companies. I don't know. It was not money used for fees. That was the record. It is out there, and we are talking about a very good percentage. That would give you about 13% shareholding Safaricom. So what will happen with Kenyans is that we are borrowing because we can. We borrow because we are. I've met people who are flexing with these digital loans. They are flexing like it's their money. I have a higher limit than you have. So we are already spending money that we don't have. So for me, I feel like part of this reflection should be, have I been content? I went through a high, I went through a low. Have I found contentment? Have I found that everything else there has a season? Because if we don't do that, we'll be now we'll be now reacting. Remember, there are many freedoms that a human being has. One of the freedoms I've recently discovered is your freedom to react. It is up to you to choose how to react based on how someone approaches you, based on how a loss comes. But if you don't prepare, that is why now we will react. So we need to understand and anticipate. If today I lost my job, if today I lost my business, if a flood came and swept away my business, where will it be? Where will be my mental strength? About 2 weeks ago, I shaved all my beard. I'm normally more hairy than this. And the reason I did that, I know it was no shave November for men's mental health. Congratulations to the only one man here. So congratulations, you made it in the month. They don't talk about us. But however, when I shaved my beard, it was an indication of I have been attached to this beard for the last 5 years. Can I let go? And the indication was what we get attached to is what kills us. So if you lose it, that's it. So one of the things I'm teaching people is, I tell people, I disappoint people, this is my yellow couch when guys come for financial therapy. I tell them making you rich is is the easiest bit, but you'll not always be rich, or you'll go through valleys. So how can we prepare for all these seasons? Because at the end of the day, like I said, the primary goal for me is to find contentment, to find that sober mind, to make sober decisions about your money, so that come tomorrow, you can be able to sit down and tell people about your story. I'm one of those people who've gone through all the whole 9 yards, gotten broke, made money, lost again. So I can clearly share that the biggest part of this is finding contentment and knowing how to take losses.
Amazing. Thank you for that, Amos. I'm going to move it to Timon, and I think Lynette has spoken a bit about this. But how can organizations now, for real, right? They're not ticking boxes. How can they embed this practices into their culture, where people, can grow, they can experience personal development in the workspace, and they have, that they know they're genuinely taken care of. Give us some examples on how organizations can do this.
Okay, thank you, Tessie. Let me start by saying this. We must recognize that every organization will take the personalities of the leadership. Every organization has a personality, and that personality is expressed in the leadership that runs the organization. So that leadership needs to understand that, okay, fine. If we are going to embed change, emotional change, financial literacy change, and build a good mental health, they will first of all need to be intentional about it. If you're not intentional about it, you probably won't be able to move forward. You can put all the strategies in place. You have to be intentional with the fact that, okay, my people need to stand in a good mental health to be able to give me the productivity that we desire. We must be able to teach them, or probably expose them to a good financial practices individually, because even if you pay them heavily, if they don't know how to strike a balance, like Amos said, and be contented with what they have, they will squander it, and then a lot of things will happen within the organization. I think it starts first and foremost with the leadership of any organization to say, okay, fine, what do we do differently? We have to practice and you know, make everyone in the organization have some kind of cognitive flexibility with respect to all the policy changes and culture shifting that is happening around us on a daily basis. I hear Amos and Lynn say that Kenya is boring. You want to come and learn from Nigeria? See, I mean, you can't match it. But so you can probably see that it's something that it's cutting across board. So, like you said, you must have to first of all define what exactly do we want as an organization before you draw up strategy on how to pass it, maybe by way of training, by way of workshop, by way of cultureship. You must have to first of all define what we want. And what company A wants might be different what company B wants with respect to how they want to achieve it. But at the end of the day, you will still find out that it's the same principles of emotional intelligence usage, how to manage the mental health of the people, and then manage the finances, which is the crux of what we're talking about today. So if you look at it very well, you like it or not. Amos, you're a boss on your own. Lane, you're a boss on your own. So is Mucha and Tessie. It will get to a point in time that you have people working up around you. You must be able to define. And that process of defining what we want is the beginning of shaping a culture, which is going to come down to organizational culture. You probably say, how do we influence the thinking of our people? If they think right, they will act right. If they don't think right, no matter what you have given to them, even if you pay them $1 million per month, those who want to mess up will mess up if they don't have the kind of contentment that Amos is talking about. So there need to be a leadership infiltration into their thinking pattern, and we cannot rule away some forms of morality, some form of self-actualization. Mucha did talk about self-awareness, and which is not enough. You must be, because this is who I am, and when you know this is who I am, you now say, okay, fine, because of this, we need to do this. There could be some people that could be toxic within your organization. Probably, I don't know, you get to a point of time, you say, okay, fine, if this person is not changing, if he's becoming a yeast kind of within the organization, you find a way to deal with such. And I think that's where I talk about being intentional. You have to be intentional with those with serious mental health. You have to be intentional with those who have serious financial problems. You have to bring it under the canopy of how do I emotionally balance everything within the organization so that we can move forward. The same with government. How can you borrow money and you are passing it through a betting house? It doesn't add up. And then you are asking that you want to prosper. So it's a thinking process that if somebody is sitting in your yellow chair, Amos, you say you're going to, you probably will see a different perspective to how people think. And I'm sure everybody listening to us, they will begin to wonder, which of this category am I falling into? And at the end of the day, you run to learn, I'm having some mental health because some basic things have not been done. And I'm saying it trickles down from the leadership. And I say every organization will take the personality of the leadership, you like it or not. So, how do they apply it? How will they push it into the organization? Will depend on the intentionality of the leadership or the intentionality of the individual themselves. So I cannot push all the responsibilities on the leadership alone. Every individual who probably have passed through Tessie's class, has passed through Amos' class, has passed through Leon and Mucha's class, will come to him or herself and say, okay, fine, this is what I want. That's why the first question that we asked before, why is reflecting important? When you reflected on what you've been doing in the past, and you find out that where I'm going to, and if I continue like this, it cannot end there. The map is not adding up. So you change your thinking, and you're in the maybe of changing your thinking, you'll be able to point to the direction of where you are heading to. So every organization, every individual, every government parastatus must begin to think in this way so that you can get a desired result. And first and foremost, you must paint that desired result for everybody to see. Thank you.
Amazing. As you were speaking, I was just thinking about how uncomfortable it is for some people to sit and reflect. Just sitting there with your thoughts and say, okay, let me go through my year and understand what take stock, really. I've found important tools that we can use to reflect, and we can talk about that towards the end so that you're able to go through that process. For a lot of people, it's uncomfortable, but it's important, right? And I want us to go into a personal level. Before I do that, I will invite our audience to let us know where they're tuning in from, share your comments, share your questions to the panelists, and let's connect. Now, to all my panelists, let me bring it to a personal level, right? Throughout the year, what professional or personal experiences have you had that have sort of influenced your outlook for this coming year as you plan? And before I pick out who my first panelist is, I can see Elizabeth Gesare is here. Thank you so much for connecting with us and for always tuning in for the EQ Lunch and Learn series. So I'll start with you, Bucha.
Thank you, Tessie. It's amazing how even so many years after we all shifted to using online devices, how we still all just start talking while we are muted. I think it's something that we are always learning. So I think that for me, there's been much that I have learned this year. This year for me has been quite a season of change. At the beginning of the year, I usually take time to reflect on what I think is my verse for the year. And my verse for the year this year was the scripture that talks about God doing a new thing. And it's because there's so much change in my life. So when I think back about the lessons that I've learned this year and how these lessons have influenced my outlook, I think I continue to learn the importance of adaptability. I think that when we set our goals for the year, we must always make sure that we are open to things not quite working out the way we had planned, and that our goal is to progress and that we're not stuck on this idea of perfection. And so you are able to adapt accordingly. So when things shift, rather than getting stuck in this idea that this is what you had in mind and this is what it should have looked like, being able to reassess and ask yourself, okay, so things have changed. How do I shift so that I'm still making progress, I'm still growing, I'm still moving towards the end that I desire in light of these changes? So I think that's definitely a lesson I've learned or I've been reminded of this year. Something else I've been reminded of this year is to extend grace to myself. I think that as someone who is very driven and very goal oriented, I often push myself and I am a little hard on myself. And so throughout the course of this year, I've been learning to extend grace. And I think that's something that I will carry on or carry forward into next year, and to be intentional about extending grace, really having those times of reflection and reminding myself that, I need to be kind to myself. And yes, it's important to have big, hairy, audacious goals. And yes, it's important to be driven towards achieving those goals. But it is also important to extend yourself grace. So when I make mistakes, for example, when I am behind schedule, for example, on a particular milestone, when I don't handle a particular scenario very well that comes up, I must extend grace to myself. Yes, I must do what I can to restore or to repair any damage that has been made. I must do what I can to catch up if I'm falling behind, but first extend grace to myself. And then I think the last thing that I've learned this year, and this is really a lesson I learned as a result of what happened to me at the end of last year, is that really it's critical to pay attention to what's most important. Life shifts in directions you never expected. And so it's really important to prioritize what's important. And for me, that means prioritizing what's important, not just in terms of my work, in terms of my tasks, but in terms of life. What are my priorities in life? And I am learning to place check-ins regularly through the duration of the year to remind myself. One of my biggest priorities is my spirituality. One of my other really big priorities is my family. And it's really important that those things are put in the right place. We don't have as much time as we think we have. Many of you may know my mom passed away in December last year, and it was very unexpected. She wasn't ill. She had a massive brain hemorrhage and, died immediately. And when I look back, my biggest thing is, man, if I'd known we had such limited time, I would have, you know what I mean? I would have spent more time. I would have made sure those phone conversations were even longer than they were. I would have made sure that, the time we spent was even more. I would have, made sure I said all the things that I wanted to say. So I think one lesson I've learned this year is the importance of prioritizing what's important and really jealously guarding that prioritization. Because the reality about work, for those of us who are employed, the reality about work for those of us who are in business, is that it never ends, right? There's always more you can do. And so I think it's important to have those boundaries and to prioritize what's important, both in terms of work, right? So prioritizing the tasks that you need to work on first, but also in terms of outside of work, prioritizing life, because life is for living. Yeah. So I think those are the 3 lessons that I have learned this year that I will continue to utilize as we go into the new year.
Great. Thank you, Mucha, for sharing that with us. I really resonate with extending grace to yourself, right? I know there's probably someone listening to us and they have their checklist in front of them and it's 3/4 way undone, and that's okay, right? So the most important part, like Amos said earlier, is the fact that you kept moving, that you did not stop, you kept moving. So feel free to, just take a step back and reanalyze your list and create your new goals for the next year. So I'll come to you, Amos. What are those experiences that have sort of shifted or, influenced how you plan for next year? You're on mute.
There you go again. You also have to go with my age. I'm growing older. So one of the things that I have learned, the business started on a low, and over time you're wondering why we are going in a direction that we did not plan. And for me now, looking back, is that I'm also in that journey where God wants me to trust Him, because even the purpose of which I am doing it is of Him. So there are things you had planned out. By now, I'm supposed to be on the Forbes magazine. Probably they're still printing, but you get my point. So, but then there's a direction that will. There's something new that will come, and you have to trust God. And at the end of the day, it is actually better for you because it is working for you through the process. And what came out very strongly is letting go. If I had this plan and we are now going in this direction because it has come, let go of the other plans. Don't get attached to them. Let go of those plans, because once you get to this other side, you realize actually this is a better plan in terms of I have learned more, I have been able to achieve more, and most importantly, it is an area that I'm continuing to build other people through. So letting go is one of the biggest lessons. The second one was what Eliud Kipchoge has always been telling us: let's take vitamin N, and that is learning to say no. And you guys may not understand unless Timon may understand this. We have, as men, we have these compartments. And when we are thinking about things, today I'm thinking about business, so I'll put it on the desk and put all the others. And one of the things I did is look at that whole, structure. And I decided to, if there is too much pressure, I have prioritized the most important ones. The rest, I look at them as distractions because there's a lot that we need to do. So I've been able to say, this is my personal life, this is the life of my children, this is business, this is my extended members of family, this is this and this and this and this. And I have been able to select a few because we don't want to bite more than we can chew, you know. And that is what for me has been good. Even in business, I have learned the same way. Some you can delegate. So I have been able to delegate for them to be able to do these things, because if you do so many of them, it is quite it's quite unfortunate, but you'll end up being busy but really not achieving much. And finally, the value of people. I have seen my business getting transitioned and transformed by people I didn't know. You're getting invites. The other day, I saw myself in the billboard. I'm still wondering, okay, so I'm doing this, and it's a huge conference, sharing a platform with huge speakers, global speakers. And for me, it was not my doing. You just continue doing your work. Someone will see you. Someone is watching, and they will promote your business. But sometimes we get attached to, I know Tessie, she's in that position somewhere, she can be able to push for me, or she's a celebrity. And once I go there, she's like, I'm too busy. And then I take it personally. She's not meant to do that, you know? And to conclude all this, and the final statement, I've learned that there are people who say, I know someone somewhere. I know my uncle is a peer somewhere. My uncle is the president. But then we realize some of us, people know us. We are that person to many people. So all you have to do is trust God. So we really have to understand that at the end of the day, it is trusting that the right people will come your way, and especially us in business. Thanks.
Great, that was very powerful, Amos. Thank you for sharing that. Lynn, you can go next.
Wow. I mean, just listening to Mucha and Amos, I think I can also attest to, you know, understanding their lessons and also relating to them. For me, I think the number one thing that has really, really been rather pushed, or rather one of the main things that I've learned, is to keep going. Always keep going. The problem is sometimes, and when I say always keep going, is consistency. Even when it's the small things, try and be as consistent as possible. And I'll give a very interesting example which all of us can relate with. In January, all of us said we are going to hit the gym, and then we all paid for that gym subscription, and we said we are going to start working out. But the issue is, how many people stayed on course and continued with their fitness schedule throughout the year? Some people never stepped into that gym. Some people decided to be consistent, but there are days you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh gosh, not today. We are not doing this today. But sometimes you walk in and you say, okay, my workout schedule is an hour, but today I can only put in 20 minutes. That 20 minutes was the best for you that day. So if you can be able to be consistent, even with the small things, and do it in a way that feels like even when you didn't want to do it, you managed to put in some effort into it, then it's very, very rewarding. Because once you're done with it, you're like, okay, I didn't do the 1 hour, but the 20 minutes was the best I had today, and I gave it my all on that day. So that is very, very important. Always keep going. And when you keep going, it's very satisfactory, and at least you're able to push through and get something done, and it's very satisfactory on your end. The other thing that I've also learned, that is also very, very important, is the fact that human interactions are very, very important, because every conversation we have with someone is an opportunity for us to learn. So anytime you interact with somebody, it gives you an opportunity to learn something. Everybody, from the cleaning lady in your house to the watchman at the gate to your colleagues at work, anytime you interact and have a conversation with them, then it's an opportunity for you to learn something. Us interacting here together, as much as people are learning from us, we are also learning from each other. So there's that aspect of, you know, learning with that. And then another thing that I have learned, and oh gosh, I think I'm struggling with it, is trying to talk myself out through imposter syndrome. I think that is a very, very big thing for me. Um, Especially as Mucha spoke, this year has been that year for me, coming out of my comfort zone. I did things that I was not aware I was going to do. Someone tells you, "Oh yeah, you can do this." Yeah, yeah, I can do that. Then you retract and you're like, "Why did I say I can do that? Am I actually good enough to do whatever it is that I need to do?" So, and or you're in a room and you've actually decided or volunteered to do something, and you keep asking yourself, "Oh wow, all these people, and they're doing so great. How am I doing? Am I this good? Why did I get myself into this in the first place? Should I just walk out and say, okay, I'm not feeling too well and move on?" But you realize learning to talk yourself through imposter syndrome, because that shows that you need to start acknowledging that you're it as a person. The successes that you have garnered, everything that you've gone through, you're it, and that's why you're in that room. You're meant to be that in that room. You're all deserving, you're all worthy. So learn to talk yourself out through that imposter syndrome. I think that is the major one for me, because once you're able, because most of the time you're offered something really big, but you belittle yourself, and yet you can be able to do whatever it is that you need to do. So I think that one would have been top of my list as well. So those are like the three main lessons that actually I've learned and have kept me going this year.
Amazing. Thank you, Lynn. Timon, last but not least.
I didn't want to start talking like Amos without the mic coming in. Okay. Thanks for the contributions that we've had, and I think it's important for you to know yourself. For me, one of the biggest lessons um, I have I learned this year, which I have been accused of by my friends, that is that I have not leveraged the power of my network. Um, a lot of people say you have good network, but you have not maximized your network, and that is not giving you the mileage. That's not giving you the kind of productivity you want to. So for me, maybe it's in the bid of wanting to be conservative or wanting to not bother people, then not to put stress on the network that you have. And I think that, like we have here right now, I'm talking to Amos, I'm talking to Leah and Mucha and everything like that's in the form of network we have built. Okay, we can do some things together to spread it through Africa, as it were, and then the rest of the world at large. And I think that every network that I have had before that I have not leveraged on, I'll probably need to visit it and move ahead for next year. So you see the importance of reflecting, then thinking about it, and moving forward. That's one. I have not been able to. I have not done it alone. I'm sure if someone that's one of the people, if you're on this call listening to me, you say, okay, fine, you got that one right, because he has been on my neck on that. So I think that's one thing I've learned, and I'm working towards making it different in 2024, so that a lot of me and what I can do can be seen at large. Closely related to that is also something that is having um, a connection to that, which is being audacious. Whatever your goal is, whatever maybe financial goal, you need to be audacious and believe in yourself. To even if you fail, at least you have taken a shot at it. Like Amos said, you probably have financial literacy, but you don't have the attitude and the behavior to carry it out. And I think at that point in time, you need to put everything together into one plan. Be audacious about what you want, whatever it may be it in your organization, be it in your family, be it with you as an individual. Set that goal. Leverage the people around you and be audacious to attack it. And I think that is what Leon was saying subtly. In that perspective, you need to be audacious as per what you want. Make it big. If you have ever read the book Built to Last, it's called it the big, hairy, audacious goal. You understand that kind of thing. So I think that such principles as emotional intelligence practitioner, as financial literacy expert, as mental health practitioner, I think the space is large for us to operate in in the next coming year, and probably leverage your network, be audacious, and closely related to it again is to learn to collaborate. Whatever you're doing, we cannot but do it alone. Collaborate, which is taking back to one. So for me, collaboration is in every. I still have to tie it down for the three topics we are looking at, talking about learning and mental health right now. There are people who you are down financially. Put a call across to them and say, okay, this is what I'm going to. I mean, you need to collaborate. Okay, I need to do this. Let me call my people together and let's move ahead. So it helps you to how do I put it now? It helps you to manage your emotions very well. And whatsoever comes out of it, you probably to say, okay, fine. What are the things that are, let me use the word, you have a serious consequential thinking along the process, then you probably need, what are my options in respect to this? And you begin to say, fine, this is how I'm going to nail this particular idea. This is how I'm going to nail this. For me, that's the part I want to. So the three, one of them is that leverage your network, identify again. The foundation is make sure you have good network. So go and hold on to networks that will pull you down. You understand? So it's important that we note that, build good network, then leverage on the network, then be audacious with whatever goal you have set for yourself. That means you have to have a goal of self, and make sure that at the end of the day you build a good collaborative net strength within your network and the people you know. And then 2024 will be something that we'll all sing and shout about. I will probably might be in this kind of call next year again to say, okay, hooray, we made it, and it will be good for all. Thank you.
Wow, I'm really enjoying just listening to all of you, and I must commend you for being vulnerable enough to share the experiences that you've had, the challenges you've experienced this year, and what learnings you've taken from that. I want to just do a shout out to the team online, Nathan, Holly, Mumbi, and Penina. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for just sharing with us and joining us on this afternoon. As we continue to interact, to connect, please drop your comments and your questions for our panelists, and we can take them as we go along. Now, I'll come to you, Amos, and I know there's a lot we need to learn around, financial growth or management, but I would want to just help people a bit here, right? What are those mistakes we make when we are putting down our financial goals, and how can we avoid making the same mistakes moving on to the next year?
That was intentional. I had to be consistent.
I figured.
Consistency is the key here. But coming to money, I mean, there's a lot of things that we need to learn about money and the mistakes people are making. And I believe that a lot of us start to make financial goals before we take stock of where we are financially. And I know most of us have done a balance sheet. You've known, I own this, I owe people this. So when you subtract that, you find that that's your balance sheet. That is how much you're worth. People have done that. Most people, roughly, they know how much they spend. So there's a budget towards that. But sometimes when you do an evaluation,
Sorry, I think we lost Amos for a bit there. An internet hitch.
I
Micha,
was
can you hear
about to,
me?
yeah, I can hear you. I was about to check and see, is it me who's lost the connection? We've also lost Lynn, it appears. Yeah, but I'm sure when they get back, they'll join us.
I think we can just proceed as we wait for them to get back on. I will go to Timon. Um, please share with us what you envision of the role of emotional intelligence evolving in the future, and what impact it might have on personal and professional growth.
That is a question we cannot exhaust in one day, and we can't exhaust it in one day. We've seen a lot of research. We've seen a lot of paper that come out with respect to how important emotional intelligence is. So if you are going to say how important is emotional intelligence, um, uh, I can't say this I can't grade it, because it's more like now the blood that runs in the flesh of the life we live, and it's the thing that giving life to anybody that want to succeed. It's the thing that will give life to the people that at this point in time, every organization that is not running with emotional intelligence is probably going to be stunted, and you see people will gravitate to where they feel they are loved and their emotions are catered for. So when we say how important, let me call it like emotional intelligence will begin to become like the oxygen that we breathe to stay alive. Why did I say so? Because um, we have people from different culture, different background living with us in your organization, in your neighborhood, and they are probably having different upbringings, and you will need to live with them. And if you don't understand yourself, you will think that everywhere you go okay, let me put it this way. If you don't understand yourself, you keep having culture shock because of the way people behave. So when you have good emotional intelligence, the world is becoming globally small. So you must be able to understand, okay, fine, this is how I will have to behave. Or let me take a back view and look at the situation before I act, before I talk. So you begin to understand the patterns that is happening around you. You understand the triggers, that your own triggers. Then you begin to understand. Tell yourself, what are the things? How will I act differently to this person's attitude towards me? Might be a boss that just came into your organization. So emotional intelligence is important in as much as you have life and you are dealing with people. You will always get to realize that it's data. Let me quote Mucha again. Is data is not going to give you direction, but it is how you maximize it, how you use the data to live. So emotional intelligence is giving you feedbacks. So you must be able to analyze this. Okay, fine. This is what this person is doing, and the way you answer person A might not be the way you answer person B, because you have now come to understand the way these individuals are wired. If you do that, you get the best out of them. Rather, if you don't do that, or you probably don't understand them, you will be triggering the negative side of them. And God help you, they too don't understand how to manage their own emotions. It's going to be firecracker. Everybody is going to be fighting. You get, and that's one of the things that we must understand. That look, for us to move ahead, we must understand the different cultural shifts that we are having, how to I, as an individual, relate to all of them, and the right words, again, the right words to use. And it's going to follow the TFA model. I love the thinking, feeling, and action model with emotional intelligence. So if you get there, the way you think will influence the way you feel. And you understand that the way you think will be as a result of the information you gather around you per time. We influence your thinking. And when you influence your thinking, it will generate a form of feeling, this is a kind of emotion. An emotion can never, this is me, I say emotion is like energy. If you did sciences in school, they say energy cannot be destroyed nor created, but you can just transform it. So if you take emotions as energy and you are able to analyze it very well, you probably know how to act better. So when we say how important is emotional intelligence, is like saying that how important are you how important will it be for you to stay alive in business in the next year? Because if you don't understand emotional intelligence, your finances will be in trouble. It will give you a lot of mental health. You probably see a lot of people running to depression, and they don't know how to do what they should do. So emotional intelligence surrounds everything. If you are broke, animals will testify, but I've had a lot of people come to you broke, and you will see their thinking will be different from somebody who probably has some millions of in their account. It's just a thinking because they know. So it's you know how to realize that it's not about the money, it's about the person. You might see some people who don't have the money, they know how to manage their emotions. They don't allow temporary lack of money to get them on the street running riot. And the same way, you see people who probably have the money. Because they have the money, they cannot trample on everybody because, okay, I'm the big boy in town. So emotional intelligence helps you to manage all the processes together. Like I said, if you ask me, I could use the whole day section to say, okay, fine, let's break it down into pieces. But I want to stop it there at this point in time because I see much laughing. I understand what I'm talking about. Thank you.
By the way, feel free to jump in at any point, panelists. I know this conversation is morphing into an interesting form, and I love that we are genuinely sharing our own experiences and what we see, this space to be in the next couple of years. I will move to Lynette before I come back to you, Amos. Lynette, tell me more about, looking forward. What are the key goals and priorities that we envision for the mental health advocacy space? And how can individuals who are interested be part of pushing that agenda?
Thank you very much, Tessie. And just to respond to you, in terms of the mental health advocacy space, currently, of course, we would like to, I think the first thing would be number one, and I think this was, this was very, a very important discussion which we had earlier on this year, and I think Mucha can attest to it, is how there's a deep connection between emotional intelligence and mental health. And that is very important because if you're self-aware about your emotions and understanding the impacts that they have on yourself, then it also, goes a long way in terms of determining your mental health. So I think one of the issues, or rather advocacy areas, that we also need to start considering is how do we ensure, there's that aspect of emotional intelligence, and how do we further stress that the fact that emotional intelligence is integral to actually optimum mental health. Because a lot of, I've been seeing there's been a lot of work in organizations around emotional intelligence, but also just trying to bring up this aspect of, emotional intelligence and also merging it with the issues around mental health would be such an important advocacy point. Another important advocacy point, which I feel is we've been stressing about it, is the whole idea of trauma-informed approaches in institutions. Because a lot of, and this also boils down to emotional intelligence, and also trying to understand people better and how to be able to assist in certain situations. And I'll expand when we talk about
Sorry, Lynn, I think we lost you there a bit. Is that on me only?
No, I can't hear Lynn. And it's really strange because I can see her talking,
Yeah.
but can't hear her. Lynn, I don't know if you can hear us. We can see you talking, but we can't hear you. Yeah, no, there's an issue with Lynn, I think. Perhaps we can go to Amos's answer.
That's fine. So as we sort out that with Lynn, Amos, back to you. Talk to us about those mistakes that we shouldn't make as we plan for 2024.
Yeah, I think earlier when I started the statement, I was talking about how most of us have done a balance sheet. You have a budget, but the emotional bit is the one that actually messes us up. We have not set the proper mental foundation, or we've not set a proper culture that will actually be able to handle the goals that we have financially. So what normally happens is that you'll always find yourself that you're in a cycle and you're not achieving your goals. They're always seeming like they're far-fetched. And that is a challenge, because some of the things we need to start asking ourselves is, are there things we need to pause on? Are there things that we need to stop doing? For instance, if it's black tax, we are all aware that a lot of us, are supporting people somewhere. Is it time that we start making it sustainable? We've always attached financial goals to something I will buy or a status that I'll acquire. But you're forgetting that there are goals that you need to set. Even if you have children, there's a culture you need to set for your children. So all these things is that to just answer your question on the mistakes that people do, we base we base our goals on the wrong foundation, on the wrong culture, on the wrong teachings, on the wrong influence. Because I have seen this, and this has happened a lot with the ladies. Ladies are very good at seeking financial literacy. You guys will come, and you'll come as a proactive measure, and you'll find solutions, and you'll come and subscribe. But for men, we come when everything has hit the fan, when things have gone south, and we are fighting fires here. But on the flip side, you realize that a lot of ladies do things together because so and so did it. We are in groups, we are in chamas, but these chamas are not even beneficial. So, and you're still continuing with that into the coming year. So you'll realize that we have sometimes to evaluate before we set new goals. Let's evaluate what kind of foundation had we put these ones, and which ones do we want to put? Because all that will now guide you on some of the things we talk about, investments with a purpose, emotional decisions when it comes to money. And it goes on and on, but the right foundation is where people go wrong. And that's where you'll find your decisions or your goals for the coming year will always be unachieved. They will always be met halfway because we did not set the proper foundation for our finances.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Amos. And I can see people on the chat are agreeing and resonating with what you're sharing as well. I'd love to welcome Sharon Kangai, who was also one of our speakers in the past EQ Lunch and Learn sessions. Sharon, karibu sana. I will move it back to Lynn. Sorry, we lost you towards the end. So feel free to unmute and share your contribution.
Yeah, we still can't hear Lynn.
No. So I think
Yeah,
audio is
there's
still
a technical issue. Not sure what happened.
no. So I think you could try just logging in again, then we'll see if that gets sorted out. Meanwhile,
Maybe
before we
if she can remove her earplug and plug it again, maybe can help her out with that.
possibly. So we'll just help her to do that on the side, and we'll have her back before we wrap up for sure. Which I wouldn't want to end this session without speaking to you. And you've been speaking to individuals and to companies for quite a while about leveraging this skill called emotional intelligence. What do you see it morphing into this year? And how can we, first as individuals at work and leaders leading teams and looking to build, cultures where we make a good environment for people to work in, what can we do to make this better in the next year?
So I had to quickly look and see if my mic was muted before I dove in. So what trends I see coming up? I mean, I think more and more organizations just recognize how important emotional intelligence is, and how ultimately the soft stuff influences the hard stuff. And so we're looking forward to continuing to engage with organizations to support them and support leaders more so that they can understand the language of emotions. The reality is that the language of emotions is a critical and crucial one, and too many leaders don't understand it. Too many leaders are not proficient in it, and so we see the opportunity to work with more and more leaders. We're passionate about supporting leaders across the African continent to build their capacity to converse in this language. And so we see that this is something that hopefully will become more and more prevalent, and more leaders will recognize how important it is for them to invest in this really critical skill. And I think that is something that we're excited about as we look ahead. Gone are the days where organizations felt that when you come into work, leave your emotions at the door, right? Because that's not possible. My emotions are a critical part of who I am as an individual. What leaders and organizations should do is help people to understand what to do with their emotions, right? So now that I can't leave them at the door, what should I do with them? How do I handle how I'm feeling so that it doesn't, it doesn't negatively impact how I show up at work? And that is the conversation that we want to be part of. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Mucha. Lynn, welcome back. Let's just test your mic.
I hope I'm audible this time.
Yay!
You are back. Great.
Thank you. And just to maybe leverage on my last point and something that Mucha said, which is also important in terms of mental health advocacy, is I'm seeing a lot of organizations are trying to take the trauma informed approach, because you would see someone, maybe the productivity slumps, and all you, it used to be you'd be called into the office and someone starts asking you, what's wrong with you, why aren't you performing at work, without actually considering what are some of the factors that are actually leading to you not being that productive. So when I talk about trauma-informed approaches, is exactly what Mucha said. When you leave, when the way it used to be, when you come to the office, you leave your emotions at the door. Now, here on mental health, it means you leave your trauma at the door, which is very difficult, because let's say, for instance, you're coming from a very abusive home, and you're coming to the office and you have to, shelve how you're feeling and be productive. But what it's doing to you is that it's really, really breaking you on the inside. And of course, or maybe you've had a traumatic experience. It could be as simple as coming to on your way to work, you experience a horrific accident, which is very graphic, and you come to the office and you have to deal with that trauma. How do we deal with it? How do we deal with the impact of it? You've lost somebody. And I remember we were having a conversation with a friend, and she lost her mom about 4 or 5 months ago. She works in a very fast-paced firm. Of course, they gave her a few days off to go and, take care of funeral arrangements and bury her mom and come back to the office. But what you don't realize is that people are grieving after that. So how do you deal with that? Because people would see she's struggling at work, but how do you deal with that? Of course, it had to get to a point where people have that conversation in the office, and she tells them, listen, it's 2-3 months down the line after I've buried my mom, but I'm still struggling. So I need help. Do you need to see a counselor? And I'm seeing a lot of offices are embracing this human aspect, trying to be a bit more trauma informed. The same way I was talking about EABL earlier. Losing a child or a miscarriage is not a walk in the park. Women understand. You've bonded with this child. You lose a baby through a miscarriage. How do you grieve? How should the office help you grieve? Or how do they consider you or plan for the fact that you're going to grieve, and you cannot account for the period you grieve? It's not like when you wake up in the morning and you say, oh yeah, I'm going on leave and I'm going for 3 days. We have a function in Shags. I should be back after 3 days. No. It's all about how you'll grieve for an unprecedented amount of time, but how do we support you? So those are some of the issues that I feel should be advocated for this coming year, that the officers should take a more human approach when it comes to human experiences, because people are not immune. People will lose somebody, you will lose a friend, you will lose a family member, God forbid, but it's happening. People do that, but how do we step in? Maybe someone is struggling with a child who, of course, has a disability somewhere. How do you come in and support them? So those are some of the advocacy aspects that I feel we need to, create policies and implement that are take a very much of a humane approach. Because when we talk about policies and advocating for them, we've done it. It's a lot of work, we've done it. But the thing about Kenyans is that I like how we are very progressive, but sometimes when you've done it and you've signed it, it's on the shelf. So someone comes and talks about, oh, well, we need a new mental health policy. You tell them, I think we have one because we did one in 2015. Then you go and pull it out of the shelf and start looking at what was there. Or I think we need maybe a suicide prevention strategy. Oh, I think we have one. Let's pull it out of the shelf. But how do we create those practical policies or practical approaches to, to what is happening on our day to day. I think that's what we need to advocate for at our workspace. If you feel like you need a policy and it's going to work for you, depending on the environment that you're in, be a strong advocate for it, because it actually works out and people actually listen. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for that, Lynn. I really appreciate you guys for just making this a space where you can share some of the experiences you've had, some of the work that you're doing to make sure this space grows and it's of benefit to individuals. I truly, truly commend you for that. Now, as we go into the parting shot, I can see a couple more people joining us. So first, I'll give a shout out to Caroline Withusi. Thank you for joining us. You have not missed. We still have gems being thrown left, right, and center. So you're right on time. And you can always catch this after the session as well. But I'm going to take one question as we wrap up. And I will throw this to Amos to go first. Make it as practical as possible. We can share that on the chat. Please share some of the tools and the tips for reflecting in a way that sets us up for a successful year next year. So what are the tools you would recommend, whether it's in the mental health space, the finance space? So to all my panelists, think through this question and share some tools with our audience, but we'll start with Amos.
I think this has been an interesting panel, and especially talking about emotional competence, because that cuts across all fields. There's someone who shared with me that today's man must be very good at two things, and one of them is emotional competence. Are you in a space where you are able to make sober decisions without undue influence? Are you healthy mentally? Are you doing what you ought to do without having to attach so many emotions? Because that is where we are. Most of us have been running from poverty all our lives. And it's time we sat down and stop making emotional decisions, to stop proving that we are rich and start doing what we ought to be doing with our money. The second thing is ability to manage distractions. There are too many things. If anything, there's too much information, too many events, too much advertising. You go on Instagram and sometimes you wonder you're not living because of what people are posting. And there's this comparison, need to compare yourself. Remember, all these are distractions. I keep telling people that, and it's good that my friend here from Nigeria can attest to this. There's a Nigerian saying that I'm not going to use the exact words, that someone taught me, that every dog eats poop. It's only the foolish ones that leave some on their mouth. You need to get to a point whereby you understand that what you're going through, someone has gone through before. But it's up to you to pick yourself up, wipe yourself, dust yourself, and move on, and know that anything else happening that is not of your priority is a distraction, and we must run away from that. So those are the two things that I've put as my parting shot. And thank you so much for hosting me at this particular time.
Amazing. Thank you, Amos, for that. I will move it to Mucha. Please give us your parting shot and tools that we can leverage as we go into 2024.
Yeah, so I think that for me, one of the best tools is the habit of self-reflection. And I know I may sound like a broken record because I talked about this before and I talk about this all the time. But honestly, there is something phenomenal about taking the time to reflect on how you are doing and asking yourself those self-reflection questions. Because when you're able to do that, then you can pick up insights on how you're actually showing up and what patterns exist that may not be serving you well, patterns that you can do away with. So I think for me, the tool that I would use is practice the habit of self-reflection. I would encourage everyone who is listening today to get into the habit of spending just 15 minutes reflecting on a daily basis. So just 15 minutes reflecting on, how you showed up in the day, what your highs were, what your lows were, why you had those highs and lows, what were your hot buttons? Did you respond well to those hot buttons. You know, if you fell apart, why did you fall apart? So really just spending 15 minutes every day. And what are you seeing as you look at yourself? I think that will be the greatest gift you can give yourself in terms of going forward. So developing that habit of self-reflection. And it's also something that you can utilize retrospectively. So start by really thinking about this year that has been. What are some of the things that I have learned about myself? What are some of the ways that I've showed up that have been positive? What are some of the ways that I've showed up that have not been so great, right? And I think that would be really, really, that would really be useful for you when it comes to, you know, thinking through. So I think for me, that's really, really critical, this idea of spending time in self-reflection. Another tool that I'm going to share that is really, really phenomenal that I use every year as a way to really reflect, and I know, Tessie, you're going to smile when I share this, is the Year Compass. The Year Compass is a really, really powerful tool that you can use, and I think it's really it's very comprehensive. So if you've never used the Year Compass before, it's a tool that just helps you to reflect on the year that was and start planning on the year that is. And so it's a booklet that you download. It is free. What I would encourage you is that if you want to do the Year Compass, you need to set aside some good quality time. It's not something you can do in a rush. So you need to set aside time. What I typically do, I do my reflections in December. So we as a family travel home, and in my downtime at home, I do a lot of reflecting. And so I use the Year Compass to really reflect on what the year has been like. And it asks you some really, really amazing reflective questions. You know, things like, you know, maybe a word to describe your year, and what were the highs, what were the lows, and then now that you've gathered all that information together. So I think for me, there's two things I would recommend. Number one is get into the habit of self-reflection. So purpose every day to spend 15 minutes reflecting on how the day was. And then secondly, as part of your self-reflection, use the Year Compass as a guide that can help you to reflect on the year that was and reflect forward into the new year. So that is my parting shot. And, you know, I just want to wish everyone a great Christmas season. This is the last of our EQ Lunch and Learns for this year. And we're so grateful that you have been part of this journey with us. And we trust that you indeed have, you really have found benefit from our sessions together. Maybe, Tessie, if I can also say as part of my parting shot, if there's any particular topics you'd like to see next year, please share in the comments, right? So if there's something that you would like to share, you would like to see us talk about on this EQ Lunch and Learn, share it in the comments, and we would love to incorporate your insights. Thank you, Tessie. That's my parting shot.
Thank you, Mocha. Thank you so much. I am so excited to have moderated this panel, and I just want to listen to the last two parting shots before we can close. I will go with Lynn first, then we can close with Timon.
Great. So my parting shot is that your mental health is as important as your physical health, so you need to take care of it. And I think there's that notion where, you know, because mental health is not visible as an illness, then it is not considered to be important. But when you take care of your body and you take care of your spirit, then it turns you into a very, very more or less a wholesome person, because you cannot be productive when any part of your body is ailing. So when your mental health is not at its optimum, there is no way that you can be at 100%. So just always know that your mental isn't the same as your physical. So don't neglect it. Take care of it the same way you take care of your physical body. Now, in terms of the tools that you can use, of course, we call it's a mental wellness toolbox, and a lot of this stems from self-care, because
Oh, we've lost you again, Lynette.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Ha. And I think you were about to share something really, really important.
I think we'll give her a moment to do so. Let's see if we can catch her. So Timon, please go ahead and share your parting shot.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Let me put it this way. Because we are on earth, there will always be challenges that will trigger our emotional reactions to things. It is not always going to be nice or good. So my parting shot is like, and is a tool, learn to be grateful for where you are. You can call it gratitude. Wherever you are, you can do gratitude journaling. It's a to just, okay, fine, this and this and this has been bad, but then list the ones that have been good to you and be grateful for the fact that some things have been good. So we call it gratitude journaling and primarily in emotional intelligence. It's a tool that is very good. So irrespective of what is going on, be it financially, be it mentally, if you learn to focus on the good side, I'm sure you probably will glide over the difficult ones as they are coming. And I'm sure not Mucha, not Leon, not Lizzie, not Amos will tell you that it's always going to be rosy. But what we will know that by the time the difficult time comes, put your mind on the good ones and not allow it to affect your emotions that will not affect your mental health. So learn to be grateful for every given day at every given time. And learn tool number two, learn to be audacious to challenge opportunities. Opportunities will come. So you might not get the maximum of the opportunities, but just make sure that as the year comes out, take hold of every opportunity, hold it tight, and I'm so sure by the end of the day, we'll all be happy at it. So my biggest tool for everyone that is listening today is the fact that learn to be grateful for where you are. Learn to be grateful for your emotions. Learn to be grateful that, okay, fine, my mental health might be going this way, but by the time you concentrate and be grateful, you activate joy. You activate joy. Joy, the presence of joy is not because of what is happening, it's something that is inherent. You get to activate joy by being grateful for the things that probably God has done for you, that the situation has done for you, and then not that you ignore those ones that have been bad, but you reflect on them and ask yourself, what have I not done well? What have I done how? That you use it to live well, but be grateful wherever you are. And I'm sure everyone here is, we're grateful that we are seeing December in a couple of days at the end of the year. Happy Christmas in advance.
Great. Thank you, Timon. I can see Lynn is back with us. Lynn, please go ahead and share your parting shot. Sorry for that.
No, no worries. It's okay. I'm even wondering what's going on. So I said my parting shot was your mental health is as important as your physical health. In terms of the tools to navigate, self-care is different for everybody. So self-care is so what you do for self works for me. And as Timon said, self-care includes the tiny pockets of joy that help you get through the day. So, for instance, my self care might be taking a walk, someone else might be going to the gym. For somebody else, you just need to be grounded on what gives you joy. That really helps with your mental health. And the other thing that I would not hesitate to keep repeating is that journal, journal, journal. Keep journaling. Sometimes it's very important for you to write down your emotions so that you can be able to, try and decipher them one by one to be able to understand what exactly it is you're feeling and how you can address the issue at hand. So when you're constantly journaling, that means you're taking stock. So when you journal and you take stock, then you're able to understand what are some of the areas that I need to look at. What do I need to improve? How do I handle my feelings better? What is making me stressed? How can I improve on it? And it's almost the same thing as self-reflection as what Mucha said. When you journal, you become self-aware, and once you're self-aware, then you're able to address some of the issues that are actually affecting you as a person and affecting your mental health. So if you can kindly get yourself a journal, I know there are so many mental health journals, but it doesn't have to be too fancy. You can just as well just go and get an ordinary notebook and just jot down how your day went and what are some of your highlights and your lowlights and what are some of the areas that you need to look into. Is it time for you to do, time for your usual self-care routine? So I think that would be very, very important. So always journal, journal, journal. And this was such a fantastic conversation. Wishing you all a lovely Christmas and enjoy with family and friends. And also don't forget the main reason behind the festive season, which is to share and to give. So I hope you enjoy it and have a good one. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Lynn. I have had such an amazing time to speaking to Lynn, Mucha, Timon, and Amos. This has been a powerful conversation. I think it was so timely as well as we look towards closing the year. And I will share my takeaways. I know probably we have different ones. One would be Mucha started out by saying adopting technology. We can get a lot of opportunities. We can further ourselves using this technology. So look at how you can leverage technology to grow at a personal level, from a business perspective, or in your work. And second would be reflection is important. Looking back to step forward. So make it as intentional as possible to sit down, find time to just reflect. It comes from a place of self awareness as well. So be very intentional about knowing who you are so that you're able to do that reflection and plan better moving forward. Then three would be trust the process. There was a joke that went like, does the process know that we're trusting it? I'm hoping it does now, but trust the process. As you put in the work, trust the process. Then keep going and keep learning. The other one would be extend grace to yourself. You have done well. You have come to the 11th month of the year. So good job. Extend grace to yourself and finish strong. Then there's leverage on your network. So I'd start with build your network. Intentionally build your network and leverage your network in turn. Then finally, do not be afraid to set big, hairy, audacious goals, even as you go into your planning for next year. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was our last EQ Lunch and Learn session. I am so excited to have moderated this session and to have connected with you here. We have learned that it is essential that you invest in yourself and not just the technical skills, but those soft skills too. So as you go into the festive season, I wish you all the best, you and your family. Take care. And as you plan, you can do this. Um, that has been an amazing session. This is my parting shot, Tessie Omulo from H&K Strategies. It has been amazing time to spend this 1.5 hours with you. Please feel free to connect with me beyond this point. Have a lovely one. Bye.